Well, my first guest tonight is a passionate advocate for free speech, and she also knows more than most about what it's like to be trolled online. I'd love to say that Caitlyn Jenner joins me now, I think from Hollywood. Caitlyn, how are you?
You know what, Pierce, I'm doing just fine. Actually, very excited to see what's going to happen to social media now that Elon Musk is in control of Twitter. I think it's going to be very interesting in the future. Actually, if I could, and this is going to take a little while for social media to kind of get used to this, the Elon Musk here. It's kind of almost like when Live Golf came in to the golf world, the PGA kind of had a monopoly going here. Well, social media has had a monopoly on, the far left. And finally, Elon Musk came in and he wants a free speech platform for everybody, the left, the right. And I think it's going to be good. And I think it's going to really shake up social media. You look at Mark Zuckerberg. It was reported last week he lost like $100 million or $100 billion, whatever it was, in value of Meta, because he's been so far left for so long and a voice for the left that people are leaving and going someplace else. So this is going to take some time to figure out exactly how it's going to work out. But I think it's going to be very good in the long run for social media.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. And I think Elon Musk, he's proven himself to be a genius who likes to challenge orthodoxy in terms of how we think, whether it's electric cars, whether it's SpaceX, his extraordinary space company, which does all these Starlink satellites as well, and now this. I think he's the right guy because, as I keep trying to explain to people, he's not even someone who identifies as right-wing or conservative. He's a Bernie Sanders fan. He's spent most of his life, actually, positioning himself politically to the left. And yet it's the people on the left who have gone so far left, in my opinion, that it makes people who are on the centre or maybe even slightly centre-right look like they're far-right by comparison. That's been the problem.
No, Elon Musk, I think, is going to be very good for Twitter. I have met him on a couple of occasions. Actually, I'm into aviation, and I got a private tour of SpaceX where they, down at Hawthorne, where they build the rockets. And he gave me an hour tour. We sat in his office. He was wonderful. And I think he is a big thinker. I mean, when you say you're going to start SpaceX, a space company, and you're going up, against NASA, that takes a lot. It takes some pretty big ones there. And I think he's going to do the same thing here. The first thing he's starting up with is he's going to make it a subscription where he has Twitter Blue. I think one of the reasons why when he first got in and started looking into Twitter, he saw that there were so many accounts that you couldn't verify. And he wants to be able to verify it. So he's going to put up for $19.95, you can get a verified account on Twitter Blue. And I think that's going to be very good. You're going to get rid of a lot of the junk that's out there. He's immediately started firing all the top executives. In fact, I think it was today he completely fired the entire board of Twitter, bringing his people in. Actually, he's bringing in a lot of technical people from Tesla. And he's going to shake this thing up. I think it's going to be so interesting to watch. And I think it's going to be nothing but good. I've been on Twitter. I've been shadow banned. In fact, interesting, I was shadow banned the day it was announced that I joined Fox News as a contributor. I immediately got shadow banned.
It's funny you say that, Caitlyn, because oddly, I'd noticed over the last few months my Twitter following number had gone down quite slowly but steadily for months and months and months. I was losing followers. But in the last 2 weeks, since it looked like Elon Musk was basically going to be taking it over, I've suddenly gained all the followers I lost in 2 weeks. Now, it might be coincidence. It might be, I don't know, they were taking away bots or something like that. Or it might just be that from the moment it looked like Elon Musk was actually going to run Twitter, a lot of the people doing this kind of shadow banning, which for people who don't know, they put stuff in the technology which basically reduces the visibility of people they perceive to be conservative or maybe anti-woke or whatever it may be. Certainly in my case, it would be anti-woke, not conservative. But I smell a rat here, and I think you probably have experienced similar stuff, right?
I've experienced the same thing. Here's a little trivia. I broke a Guinness Book of World Records on Twitter. When I came out, and I was not on Twitter, when I came out and was on the cover of Vanity Fair, when that came out, I immediately opened up my Twitter account. And I broke the world record set a Guinness Book of World Records for the fastest to 1 million followers. Barack Obama had it at 5 hours and like 20 minutes. I did it in 4 hours and 2 minutes. From 0 to 1 million. I got a plaque inside my house.
I would expect nothing else from an Olympian gold medal champion.
Yes, and so, I've been with Twitter for a very long time, and yes, I've been shadow banned. I have also noticed in the last couple of weeks, things have started to change. Your amount of engagements is going up. I think this is going to be good, not just for Twitter, but
if you were Elon Musk,
social media.
Caitlyn, if you were Elon and you're looking at all the problems of Twitter, and I think we all know what they are, there are way too many anonymous bots, and they can influence, I think, political issues in a manipulative way, which could potentially then manipulate votes and therefore elections. I think that remains a big concern. Also, the amount of abuse, racism, harassment, death threats, and so on, is still there. I see it, every now and again, rear its ugly head.
Yeah.
Where for you, where is the line? So it's a very interesting debate, this, about where the line is for free speech. Where is free speech? And where for you, who's been on the subject of a lot of abuse and trolling, where for you is the line that gets crossed?
Well, first of all, I think that's in Elon Musk's hands right now, and the people that he brings in. He has to bring in some really good, competent people to be able to run Twitter. Because obviously, hate speech shouldn't be anywhere. It shouldn't be online. It shouldn't be anywhere. And there is that fine line between hate speech and something that's either true or maybe not quite as, true. It's almost like, for me, I get a lot of jokes about me. I've been roasted and this and everything. And there is that fine line between a funny joke that is really true, okay, and a funny joke that is like hateful. To me, I don't want hateful jokes against me. I want funny jokes against me. And you can use me, and I love as good a laugh as anybody. But it's going to be the same thing with Twitter. Where is that fine line? And I think that he's going to have very competent people in there to be able to find out where that fine line is.
Well, it's interesting you mentioned comedy because he actually tweeted, comedy is legal again.
Oh, yeah.
And I responded by tweeting back 2 laughing emojis and a thumbs up, which he then liked very quickly. And being liked by Elon Musk on Twitter at the moment is a bit like getting a papal blessing from the Pope if you're a Catholic. It's like the ultimate validation. Yeah. And it shows, of course, his own incredible engagement in Twitter. I mean, he's all over it. He reads everything. He sees everything. He's firing out tweets left, right, and centre.
Does. I don't know how he does it. The guy's got a million things going on in his life. He's sending rockets up to space. He's, developing the electric car, which nobody said they could really do and do it right. And he did, and still Tesla's the best electric car on the market. SpaceX is just killing. The only way any astronauts can get to the space station is now SpaceX. NASA doesn't have any way to get them there.
Right.
So he's done an amazing job, and I think he'll do the same thing with Twitter. It's going to take a little time to work it out, but I think Elon Musk is really good at getting good people in the right place.
Yeah, I agree.
And if they're not working out, he's afraid to. He's not afraid to fire somebody.
No, I agree.
If
what would you do?
The right people in place.
But he said today, if he had I think he had a dime or a dollar for everyone who's asked him what he's going to do about Donald Trump, he'd be very rich. Which, of course, he's already very rich. He's got $235 billion. But what would you do about Donald Trump? Would you let him back on the platform?
Oh, of course. Yeah. Why? It's a free speech platform now. Of course I would. Of course I would. You know what? It's interesting how the left is already starting to come after him. Just what was it? Just today, of course, a Senator Chris Murphy, a Democrat from Connecticut, okay, on this Monday, said that they have to review Twitter because for the Committee of Foreign Investment. Why? Because the Saudis, a lot of people don't know this, the Saudis have been big investors in Twitter for many, many years. I think they hold about $1.89 billion in investment in Twitter. Most people don't know that. But now all of a sudden, the left's going to come after and say, hey, we have to check out these investments. Saudi Arabia's been around for a long time with Twitter. They're the number 2 stockholder behind Elon Musk. But the left's going to take their shots. I think Elon Musk's a very sharp guy.
I mean, my argument about Trump has been, from the start of this, is if you're going to ban Donald Trump, you can't then allow, as they've allowed, Vladimir Putin to retain his Twitter account, Taliban leaders, the supreme leader of Iran. There's no consistency there.
Right.
You know, you cannot allow people like that to have accounts and say Donald Trump should be banned, in my opinion. It's not a question of being right or left or any of these things. It's a question of balance and consistency. And I do think the one thing Elon Musk is going to do, he's going to bring in a kind of a group of people from all walks of life, all political persuasions, and they're going to be the ones who form a consensus about who should be banned. Because there are some people who I think probably should be banned. You know, if you're going to be spewing, you know, racism or stuff which endangers people's lives, I would say Alex Jones, for example, would be one example to me where by spewing his lies about Sandy Hook and imperiling the lives of the relatives of the poor kids who died, I don't think he should have a platform to do that and endanger their lives, personally. So I think there is a line, and I think he's going to get there with a group of people which will be far more rounded politically, probably, than the current leadership group at Twitter.
No, I totally agree with you. I think, again, Elon Musk is very good at picking the right people to go to the right places. Hate speech on Twitter should not be there. Maybe a different point of view, that can be there, you know, for the first time. Because the problem with Twitter is that they have been just, you know, for the left. And they ban people who's on the right. Like in my case, shadow banned. I'm a conservative, love this country. They will do everything to limit my speech, okay? But that doesn't happen on the left. I mean, they just totally let it go. I think what now, with Elon Musk taking over, it's going to be much more well-balanced as far as who's on Twitter and who's saying what.
I've got to ask you, I know you don't want to talk about this in any depth. I completely understand why, because you have obviously a personal connection here. But Kanye, you know, Ye West, who I interviewed last week actually in the US, you know, there's a big debate about whether he should be given social media platforms now. So setting aside the fact you obviously know him through the family, what's your view? What's your view about what he said and whether he should have a platform?
First of all, any anti-Semitic remarks should be totally condemned by everybody, no matter if it's on Twitter or wherever it is. So that's where I stand as far as, that type of speech shouldn't be around.
Yeah. To me, that is a line that if that gets crossed, that should be it. Caitlyn, it's great to talk to you. I love you coming on the show. Please come back soon. You always talk a lot of sense. I really appreciate it.
It's always good to talk to you, Pierce.
Take care, Caitlyn. Well, welcome back. I'm delighted to say that I'm joined by somebody who knew the king of rock and roll, Elvis Presley, like a few other people in the world. Priscilla Presley married Elvis in 1967. They were married for 6 years. She remained a constant in his life. Despite all the controversies, she remained loyal to him to the end. And Priscilla joins me now, live from Los Angeles. Welcome to you, Priscilla.
Thank you. Thank you, Pierce.
Priscilla, I was just imagining that the movie is just exhilarating and fantastic. I want to play a clip first and then come to you. Unbelievably exciting to watch this. And I never knew Elvis Presley. You were married to Elvis Presley. What was it like for you to watch this movie? Not least because there's a character, of course, playing you.
Oh, well, to be honest with you, I was very nervous about it because it's Baz Luhrmann. And as we all know, Baz, has his own unique style, which is good. But I just didn't know how he was going to portray Elvis. And I was concerned, very concerned. Baz wanted myself and Jerry Schilling, who used to work for Elvis, to go to New York at the gala, the Mets Gala, and also to go to Cannes Film Festival. And I hadn't seen the film yet, so I bowed out gracefully and said, there's no way I can see it because obviously I don't know anything about what you're doing. So he arranged a screening for Jerry and I at Warner Brothers. And we didn't speak for, I guess, 3/4 of the movie. And I bent over and said to Jerry, well, it looks like we're going to Cannes. It was good. It was good, I have to say. I was completely engrossed in it as well as Jerry. Austin Butler did an amazing job. It was, I mean, he had Elvis down to a T, literally. He studied him for 2 years.
You see, that's fascinating because I just assumed he had him down to a T. You would know better than most because Elvis is such a unique performer. People have tried to emulate him over the years, I think, with varying degrees of success. Do you think Austin Butler has got him better than anyone that's ever tried?
Hands down, better than anyone. My daughter was quite emotional when she saw it, as I. And went, my God, I mean, it was like watching Elvis. His movements, his smirk, his walk, his attitude, his temper. I mean, it was like reincarnation. I mean, it was beautifully done, beautifully.
And Olivia de Jong plays you. Were you happy with that portrayal?
Yes, I was. I mean, we never talked. Baz did all the talking, of course. But I thought she did a very nice job. She was sensitive to him, which I was always to him, and his needs and what he was, trying to do with his life and what he wanted out of his life. So I thought she did a very nice job.
Elvis was, without a doubt, one of the most brilliant talents that the world of entertainment has ever seen. That's unarguable. He was also quite a controversial figure in many ways. Do you think he would have survived this weird cancel culture that we now have to endure?
Wow, that's a good question. I think of that often. What would Elvis think? He wouldn't believe what is going on right now to this country or to all over what's happening to this planet. He was very concerned about our presidents, who was ruling the country. And people would never believe that, but he was an avid reader as well. And not just, religious books, but also he was reading what was going on in the U.S.
What would he have made you think of what is currently going on in the U.S.?
I'm sorry?
What would he have made you think of what is currently going on in America?
Oh, no, he wouldn't believe it. I mean, he truly... I don't believe it. I don't think any of us believe what's going on right now. We've never been through anything like this, and it's pretty much global. But us as a country, it's baffling. It's truly baffling. I'm, for the first time, worried about my future, for not only my children, my grandchildren as well. Very unpredictable, and Elvis would probably go to the president, like he did with Nixon, put his foot down and say, what's going on?
What is it that you find particularly saddening or worrying?
Oh, my gosh, the state that we're in. I mean, my gosh, I don't know what happened to freedom. I don't know if there is freedom here anymore. No one says what side they're on, Republican or whatever you want to be. Being very careful what you say, how you say it. I think we're in a very dangerous time.
We're at a strange stage, Priscilla, where even high-profile women are scared to say what they think a woman is.
That's true. That's true. How sad is that? I mean, it's to watch this going on, being very young, in the limelight, and knowing a lot of people who are in the limelight, their fears on what's going on. Not that they're just in the limelight, but I think it's spread quite a bit in this country about where we're headed. And I often think, like you asked, what Elvis would think. What would he do? He wouldn't believe it. He was a diehard American. He was America.
Yeah.
He loved this country. He loved it.
But it seems
So
to me,
it's just
Priscilla,
sad that
there's
we're
a kind of movement, not just in America, but I'll talk about America about this. There's a movement to try and trash everything that's come before. And that's why I was curious whether you felt Elvis, whether there would be a campaign to try and cancel him for, inappropriate statements, inappropriate behavior, whatever it may be, inappropriate lyrics. We've seen it time and again now with so many people. That's why I was curious what you felt, because it seemed to me he would fly in the face of so much of what this weird culture represents.
Well, per the movie, if you saw, and you did see the movie, a long time it was stated that Elvis, was a racist. He was not a racist. He's never been a racist. Elvis had friends, black friends from all over. He loved their music. He loved their style. He loved being around, black musicians. I mean, Fats Domino, when he was in Vegas, he was in the lounge playing, and we would always go and hang out with him. Sammy Davis Jr., the same thing, would always come into the dressing room, and he loved being around blacks and being around anyone, actually. He was just not prejudiced in any way, and not racist in any way. So I don't know, this is a very frightening time. For someone, it's almost like, we're looking for something from everyone that we can somehow dispose them in some way.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so frightening right now. Yeah.
Was Elvis the great love of your life?
Yes, he was.
He obviously sang about love so many times. When you're on your own, perhaps, is there one song that Elvis sang which resonates most with you?
Oh my gosh, there's so many songs. Gosh, that's hard to pick. That's a hard question. That's the hardest one you've asked me. Gosh,
what's the one when you hear it come on the radio
and
and you think, and your heart flips a beat when you hear it?
Well, I think it's being in Las Vegas, watching him do the shows, and I think the songs that he sang that people were all drawn to, and I think that all of us are attached to a song. There's so many with him. I can't even tell you. It's Now or Never. Probably it's Now or Never because I heard him sing that in Germany, actually, and that was given to him through the record label of the company, and to watch him sing the song and try to reach the notes in perfection is what he was looking for, to perfect those notes, because his tone, his pitch was not as high in that particular song. So he would always try to reach it and mess up and then hit his leg and try it again and again and again. So watching him kind of rehearse and trying to get it right was an experience to watch.
You can imagine.
He was a perfectionist.
Do you wish, Priscilla, in a way that you had never got divorced from Elvis? And do you think that his life would have been different if you'd stayed together?
Gosh. To be honest, I think we were better not married. We had a great relationship. He would come over to my home at all hours of the night, talk. It could be 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock. I would have my daughter, or wake my daughter up, be with us at some of that. My mother, the same thing, although Lisa had to go to school. He would come alone sometimes, and sometimes bring Charlie Hodge, one of the guys that worked for him, or someone else, and we would just sit and talk, and he'd bring him books, and he'd read books to me. And he left me with quite a few books as well. But everything just seemed to be more relaxed, more at home when the tension wasn't there. Now remember, I'm with Elvis Presley, and watching the girls running up to him, wanting kisses from him, running to the stage, coming backstage. Listen, being who he was, and having all the women, jump him. Excuse me. Kidding. I'm only kidding.
I think you're only half kidding, actually.
Experience. Literally, just about. Anyway, but no, it was an eye opener for me, and being married to probably one of the most famous musicians or singers in the world. I mean, there isn't anyone that doesn't love Elvis.
Right, and I love how affectionately you talk about him. Not many divorced spouses would talk with the kind of love and admiration that you have for him so many years, of course, after he sadly died.
He was a great human being. He really was. And he tried so hard, at what he did to be perfect. And in many, many ways, he wanted a movie career, a good movie career. That was one of the problems, as we know. You saw the film that Elvis had him the Colonel had him tied up with a 5-year contract with Hal Wallace, of all people. Hal Wallace did more cutesy movies, Girls on the Beach, as we know. Never really gave him the part that he longed for, a James Dean part. That's really what he longed for.
But you know what, Priscilla? He had one of the greatest careers that the world has ever seen in entertainment, and he was a true icon. And the movie is utterly fantastic. And I'm so glad you loved it as much as I did. Priscilla, I've got to leave it there, but I could talk to you all night. Thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Welcome back to Piers Morgan Uncensored. I've taken a bold stand against the unsporting treachery at Lord's on Sunday by the Australian cricket team. The Australian press, in turn, has taken an equally bold stand, against me. Take a look at this morning's Daily Telegraph in Sydney has dressed me, Ben Stokes, Sir Geoffrey Boycott and Rishi Sunak as giant babies, with the headline, "A wobbly lower lip, Suki Poms keeps spitting the dummy." Well, I'm joined by chief cricket writer of The Australian, Peter Lalor. Well, Peter, great to have you on the show. You were on your podcast yesterday saying, "I've been ignoring all messages from radio and television. I'm only disappointed I didn't have enough time to go on Piers Morgan's show. I'd have loved to have gone on that. It would have been very entertaining." Well, now's your chance to see how entertaining it's going to be, Peter. Right, let me start with this. I want to show you again what happened. Just to remind everybody, this is what went down. Here we go. So,
another short ball.
For those who don't play a lot of cricket, what's happened here? Johnny Bairstow doesn't even try and hit the ball. He just ducks. The ball goes over his head. He then scrapes his boot inside the crease. You see him here from this angle. So when he scrapes his boot, he's denoting the fact it's the end of the over. 6 balls have been bowled. They're going to change ends. Scrapes his boot. Everyone in world cricket history knows that denotes that the batsman is marking his crease. And then he goes up to walk to his captain. And at that point, I don't blame the wicketkeeper, Mr. Carey, for what he did. He instinctively threw the ball. Fine. The person I blame, Peter, is your captain, Pat Cummins. And here's why. 3 years ago, the Australian cricket team were in total global disgrace over Sandpapergate. I think you were pretty censorious yourself about it. And here we have a chance, 3 years on, for the Australian team to show that they really have changed their spots and actually do believe in the spirit of the game, sometimes overriding the basic laws. What happened? Why didn't Pat Cummins withdraw that appeal and bring Johnny Bairstow back? You don't, in your guts, feel comfortable about what you saw, do you?
100% comfortable. Anybody who plays cricket, Piers, knows that the over's not over until the umpire calls it over. There's a lot of people making a lot of noise about this and sounding like you, but there's Michael Vaughan, Michael Atherton, Nasser Hussain, Andrew Strauss, 4 people who have a few things in common. They captained England and they agree with Australia's position on this. It was out. He was dopey. It was dozy. It was stupid.
Well, hang on. On all of those, I agree with you. He was out, he was dopey, he was dozy, and he was, from a cricketing perspective, stupid. I don't disagree with any of that. I think what my wider point, though, is that given everything that the Aussies have been through with their cricket team in the last few years in terms of the spirit of the game, right? And downright cheating, frankly, with the sandpaper game. I don't accuse the team of cheating this time. I didn't like the scenes in the Lord's Pavilion. It's not cheating. But I would equate it to what happened with Trevor Chappell in, I think it was 91, wasn't it? When he was captained by his brother Greg, and they were playing a one-day international against New Zealand, and Trevor Chappell was directed by his brother to bowl the last ball of the match, where New Zealand wanted 6 to win, to bowl it underarm. And he bowled underarm. And he created such a furore that even the older Chappell brother, Ian Chappell, condemned it on the commentary box. Richie Benaud called it one of the worst things he'd ever seen. Both prime ministers of both countries condemned it. In fact, Muldoon, the New Zealand Prime Minister, said that he thought it was appropriate Australia were wearing yellow shirts, and so on. And they changed the law as a result. Isn't this the same? Where you've got something which is technically within the rules. It's in the laws of the game. But everybody felt uncomfortable. And you cite all the captains of England who defend it, fine. The public, to a man and woman that I've spoken to, all think this was wrong.
Trevor Chappell's act was an extraordinary act, and I think we all condemn it. This is a very
hang on. Sorry, just on that
act.
point.
Johnny Bairstow attempted...
Just on that point.
Hang on, Piers, you've been talking a lot.
No, I just on that one point, Murph Hughes tweeted today that he thinks it was completely justified what Trevor Chappell did. So not everyone thinks it was wrong.
All right, that's Murph. That's our Murph, yes. There's a joker in every pack. Johnny Bairstow attempts the same dismissals in the very same Test match.
No,
he attempted it in the previous Test match as well.
Not the same thing.
The batsman was out of their crease. He attempted to throw down the stump.
The batsman is taking guard outside the crease, and therefore he plays and misses. The wicketkeeper has a legitimate chance to stump him if he took guard outside the crease. Bairstow clearly here scrapes his boot inside the crease. He clearly scrapes his boot. Everybody knows what he's doing there. He is saying, I'm marking the end of the over, and both umpires have moved to move away. Right, come on, this is not the spirit of cricket. And you're a very experienced and very good cricket writer, and I just don't believe you. If it was the other way round, I don't think you'd be saying the same thing.
Happens every weekend in club cricket in Australia. I don't know what you do here. It's not up to Johnny Bairstow to decide where or when an over ends. It's up to Johnny Bairstow to respect the laws of cricket, which were written by the English, and to stay in his crease until it's safe to get out of that crease. If he wants to get out of that crease while the ball is live, he's fair game. I'm sorry. I think your country's kind of lost its mind over this, and I reckon it's a bit of a smokescreen, to be honest. You're 2-0 down in the Ashes. You've all been sort of doing handstands about this great new brand of cricket you play, baseball, and good on you. It's fantastic. It's exciting cricket. But it's face-planted in the Ashes. You're 2-0 down, and you're carrying on about a fly speck on a pulpit.
Well, we should have won in Edgbaston.
I don't understand what's going on.
Let me explain, just to defend Bazball, we should have won in Edgbaston, and if Ben Stokes catches line when he's on 2, it's all over. And secondly, in this last Test match, if you hadn't basically divvied out poor old Bairstow, we'd have won that match too. So we probably would have been 2-0 up.
Coulda, shoulda, woulda. You know, you talk about the spirit of cricket. The spirit of cricket talks about accepting the authority of the umpires, of creating a positive atmosphere in the way you play. I mean, I think that English cricket owes Australia an apology.
An apology?
Australian players' mothers, yes.
But you just said yourself...
acts of hooliganism.
You just said yourself that...
Absolute hooliganism at Lords.
Well, that I agree with.
Absolute hooliganism.
Okay,
from your members and from the public, and it's being spurred on by your team, who's attempting to cover up...
Let me respond.
...the fact that it's 2-0 down in
Let me respond. I agree that the behaviour of the members chanting cheat, cheat, cheat was wrong. They shouldn't have done it, and that is ungracious. But the idea you, as an Australian, are going to lecture us on the way crowds treat the opponents. I was at the Ashes in 2013-14, where a baying mob were literally baying for blood. And in fact, they were baying at one stage for my blood in the net against Brett Lee. So I won't take any lectures from you lot on how crowds behave.
Our crowds behave poorly too, but we're not claiming to set the standards. And I'll tell you what, our crowds haven't been jostling players as they attempt to get back to their dressing room. Did you know Stephen Smith's mother left the ground in
We've run out of time.
Sorry.
I want to thank you for coming on, because very few others would come on. I appreciate it. The Ashes is now incendiary. Headingley will be an abattoir, and you lot are going down 3-2. Thank you for coming on, Peter Laylor.
Not a chance.
Start
mate,
sobbing.
Not a chance.
Welcome back, and it is good to be back. The media scrutiny around this morning presenter Philip Schofield has been relentless since he stepped down more than 2 weeks ago. In sit-down interviews with The Sun and the BBC, he talked about losing everything after admitting an affair with a young male colleague.
I understand how Caroline Flack felt. Last week, if my daughters hadn't been there, then I wouldn't be here.
Who knew on the team?
Nobody.
Well, today the key member of his team, of course, Holly Willoughby, his co-host, returned to this morning saying she feels shaken, troubled and let down.
I imagine that you might have been feeling a lot like I have. Shaken, troubled, let down, worried for the well-being of people on all sides of what's been going on, and full of questions. You, me, and all of us at This Morning gave our love and support to someone who was not telling the truth, who acted in a way that they themselves felt that they had to resign from ITV and step down from a career that they loved. That is a lot to process.
Well, we all know about stepping down from jobs we love at ITV, but there are big questions left to answer over this scandal. Or is it time to say enough is enough? Joining me to discuss all this is journalist and author Jenny Cleanman, Talk TV's Richard Tice, and Rosanna Lockwood, my stand-in. But not for long. Like all stand-ins, she's plotting and planning to seize the big chair. All right.
No comment.
Well, if you're not, you should be. Rosanna, what's your take on all this? I mean, I've been off for a week, reading about it, obviously, while lying on a sunbed, and it just reached a crescendo after Schofield gave his interviews, where I looked at, I've known him a long time, 35 years. I wrote a biography of Philip Schofield, literally in the 90s. And I looked at the guy and I thought, you are completely broken.
Yeah.
And when someone is in that condition, even though I felt that his comparison to Caroline Flack was clumsy and he probably shouldn't have said that, he probably meant it. He probably did feel that he was genuinely, what's left? I may as well kill myself. What do you think of the whole thing? Where are we now with this story?
I mean, the question that you lined us up with was, should we still care about it? Is it too far now? I'd say it was too far a week ago. I was saying this when I sat in your chair this time last week. Why? Why do the public care about this? I don't really give two hoots about it. It's a television show. Perhaps a bit reductive. I know it's representative of other issues in society. I know people are interested, but sometimes what's in the interest of the public isn't what's in the public interest.
Richard?
For me, Piers, actually, he probably was right to give that interview because it highlighted to everybody just how he was feeling. And I think that was the moment at which actually people stopped attacking him and focused on what I think is the right thing to focus on, which is the appalling, incompetent leadership and management of ITV, which is actually a seriously important company and brand within the UK.
The one thing I know for sure, a lot of people at ITV knew about the rumours about this relationship. I mean, everybody knew at ITV, right? Let's be crystal clear. That building was abuzz with this for about 3 years, because 3 years ago, the National TV Awards in the ITV box, the young man concerned in this story confessed his undying love for Philip Schofield. Everybody knew that. So this idea that the whole management are basically going, we didn't know anything, come on.
That proves my point.
I know is not true.
I mean, she has presided over an absolutely catastrophic performance of this company. The shares are down 60%, the dividends down 40%. She's being summoned to the select committee. And yet the non-exec directors, they're saying nothing. The company has said nothing at the corporate level about this.
And Dame Carolyn, God bless her, she was the CEO when I left Good Morning Britain. And they put me in a position where I had to either apologise for disbelieving Princess Pinocchio or I had to leave immediately. There was no inquiry for me. It was just like, you either now publicly apologise for disbelieving Meghan Markle's lies, as it turned out, or you have to leave immediately. So I took the leaving immediately option. But what's fascinating is 2 days after that, after I'd left, the Telegraph newspaper runs a story that says that Meghan Markle had written to Dame Caroline on the Monday night before I left on the Tuesday, demanding my head on a plate. Nobody's thought to mention that to me. And had they had done, I wouldn't have been so hasty in leaving. I would have said, I'm not leaving because some princess tells you to make me leave, right? So now, to bring it up to full speed now, the same Dame Caroline McCall has repeatedly said in public that it had no bearing on the decision to force me out. That is a lie. If you're watching Dame Caroline, that's a lie. You know it's a lie. I know it's a lie. I don't want an ongoing fight with ITV. I had a great time at ITV, although I didn't even get a carriage clock when I left. Not even a carriage clock. But wait on, 15 years, not even a clock.
Yeah, but what would you
I mean,
what would you do with a clock, Piers?
Even if you work in a factory, somebody gives you a clock, right? I didn't even get a thank you. Right? At least Philip Schofield got 30 seconds of Dermot O'Leary on the Monday thanking him. I got nothing. I trebled the ratings, not even a carriage clock.
It seems the management and leadership...
But on a serious point, here's my... Well, it's a serious point. My point really is, my experience of ITV management from the top down is that when it suits them, they'll lie through their back teeth. Secondly, that the way they handle talent is morally schizophrenic. Depending who you are and how important they think you are to the firmament at any given moment, or how important your agency is, in the case of Philip Schofield, Ant and Dec, so on, people like that, Holly Willoughby, they look at all those things, they make moral judgments based on that kind of stuff. That's where they lose me. It's not consistent. There's no consistency.
Meritocratic?
Right.
The thing is that will all come out because there's going to be an inquiry.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really good thing that there is going to be an inquiry. I think if this had happened on the BBC, they would have had to have called an inquiry a long time earlier. I do think, though, that there has been a feeding frenzy which has been spurred by some people who have a personal beef or maybe jealousy of both Holly Willoughby and Philip Schofield that has allowed this story to have a momentum to go on and on in a relentless way that perhaps it doesn't necessarily...
Well, again, look, Philip Schofield made quite a lot of enemies. It's not a secret. I know quite a few people, mutual friends who can't stand him, right? And they really can't stand him. And they made no secret of it. Amanda Holden, Eamon Holmes, people like that. They can't stand the guy, right? So that was not a secret. But I wrote a piece...
People are chalk and cheese, though, Piers, as you know very well. You know, like some people...
Yeah, I prefer to be a pleasant surprise than a bitter disappointment. My argument about the ITV daytime firmament was that so many of them were just total fakes. I wrote this piece for The Sun when this first broke 10 days ago, that the whole thing is basically fake. Right? They're not real people, a lot of them. So they'll say to your face, I love you, I love what you do, you're so fabulous, Piers. And then behind your back, you hear almost immediately that they despise you and can't wait to get your job. It's like the whole edifice is fake.
Isn't a lot of broadcasting like that?
Yes, it is.
Yes, it is, it is.
And it's a lot of bosses telling you you're wonderful, you're wonderful,
Daytime TV seems to have a particular fakery about it.
You normalise lying, and that seems to be what's happened here. Is that the lies went on and on. You know, if something is fake, it's essentially a lie. And that's gone throughout the whole organisation. Can Holly really not have known?
Well, it's interesting. Her speech today reminded me... We've got a bit of it here, I think. Let's have Holly again, yeah.
Imagine that you might have been feeling a lot like I have. Shaken, troubled, let down, worried for the well-being of people on all sides of what's been going on.
I knew what it reminded me of. It was this.
Mitch Kessler, my co-host and partner of 15 years, was fired today for sexual misconduct.
All right, stay strong.
First and foremost, I want to offer our sympathy and support to the women. We are devastated that this happened on our watch, and our hearts are with you. And to you at home, I understand how you must be feeling, because I and the whole team here at the morning show are feeling the same way. Shock, disappointment, disbelief.
She's throwing me under the bus.
Well, I mean, apart from the white dress, which was a good touch, the angelic look. Look, I like Holly Willoughby. She's a good friend of mine. I've known Philip Schofield a long time, right? I like Holly, and she's in an impossible position. She had to come back contractually and do what she did. It's just again, I wrote in this piece like that, the speed with which people go from heroes in this game, right, where charities are falling over themselves to use them, to their people they think are their friends at work. I mean, here's a message. They're not in most cases. In most cases, they will chuck you under a bus and into a grave as soon as they look at you, while simultaneously ringing the bosses trying to get your job. Right? It's just what the nature of the beast is. It's ruthless, it's horrible, and we've seen it laid bare at its worst. But Rosanna, my question, I guess, we started with this, didn't we? At some point, you've got to move on from this. Unless something comes out, unless the young man concerned in this story that Philip Schofield had the affair with, unless he comes out and contradicts Philip Schofield's version of events, or somebody else comes out with new revelations, what else do people want? Philip Schofield is a broken guy.
Yeah.
He's not going to work on television again, almost certainly. He's lost everything in his life.
Yeah.
I don't know what more the baying mob on Twitter want from Philip Schofield that he hasn't already lost.
And that was what was so evident from that interview. He was an empty husk. And I agree with you, it's clumsy, the Caroline Flack comparison. But I remember watching her documentary where she used to go home after recording her shows and just read all the tweets and all the comments and feel emptier and emptier. And it just reminds you that, yeah, showbiz people, presenters, they're overpaid. It's a lovely life, but they're also human. And it really does kill someone's soul to be attacked like that mercilessly day after day. But I will say this, have the ratings for this morning ever been higher than they were this morning?
I don't know, we'll find out. I mean, the problem for Holly would be if they were gigantic for the first half a minute and then plummet. I mean, we'll see. Look, it's not funny for her. She's obviously being through a very tough. It's tough. It's difficult. You're in an arranged marriage with these situations.
Yeah,
I was in one myself. Suddenly you're divorced, right? It's a very, you know...
Really hard to maintain. And when you say what do people want? They want her destroyed. They want the show axed. And there are some people who have, you know, like proper professional beefs or who want the job and are going to keep on going. And as soon, you know, when the results of this inquiry are
and I'm not saying they're all going slightly nuts, but this was the boss of this morning, Martin Frizzell, who's a good guy, and from my experience. But this is how he reacted this morning to Sky News.
Tell you what's toxic, I've always found toxic, is aubergine. Do you like aubergine? Do you?
Is there a toxic work environment?
But do you like aubergine? Because I don't like aubergine. It's just a personal thing.
Is there a toxic work environment at this morning?
I've heard of whataboutism. That's a new one.
Well, somebody mentioned it might be an emoji reference. I don't think we really want to go there, but these situations do send everyone slightly nuts.
This probably goes quiet until the inquiry comes out. And if the inquiry finds that actually the management and the leadership and the board knew about this, then I think the whole pack of cards comes down and it's a start again.
You know, the hardest problem for Holly Willoughby will be who to replace him with, because poor old Susanna Reid, she's been through about 15 blokes now, and none of them live up to me. And that's a heartbreaking moment.
hard act to follow.
Couldn't wait to see that, could you?
I was trying to say that with a straight face, and you're all like, oh, really? Oh, yeah. It's a joke. Mind you, when one of them was Alistair Campbell, you can quite understand it. My God. Talk about cratering the audience.
Maybe could she not do it, actually, could she lead it and then have a sort of guest host each week?
Yeah. Well, that's what she's doing, I think. Anyway, look, we've got to leave it there. It's a fascinating scenario. I just think probably most people in the country now, if not the wider world, have just bored with it. They're bored.
They're done.
Short of a new bombshell, move on. Don't we think?
Yep.
I think so. Well, Ben Shapiro is here, live and uncensored. Well, that's quite an intro we've given you there.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it.
You better live up to it.
I look at that old tape and suddenly I hit puberty, right? I mean, like,
we both look so young.
Oh, my God.
I mean, that's probably over 10 years ago.
10 years ago.
Right.
10 years ago.
And it was interesting because I was at the time, you know, getting very angry about a series of mass shootings in America with a British sensibility and saying, you know, obviously my country, we don't really have any guns. And I was, you know, hectoring and lecturing, I guess, Americans about their gun laws, and it went down as badly as that phrase would suggest, particularly with you. But what was interesting was when you came on, I thought, who's this snotty little kid who's going to start trying to take me on? And then it rapidly became clear to me you were a hell of a lot smarter than you appeared. So we've moved on from then. Anyway, we've had our kiss and make-up interview after that. But I think what was pretty interesting to me, 2016, so 7 years ago now, you tweeted a tweet. This is your pinned tweet to this date. Simply said, facts don't care about your feelings. And if any phrase, I think, perfectly epitomizes this woke era that we have somehow stumbled into, it's that. Because the woke brigade put feelings before facts. How do we get there?
Well, I mean, culturally speaking, I think that what happened is that the value of subjective authenticity became the core to pretty much everybody. So the idea of individualism was taken to its logical extreme, which was, I'm so important and everything I feel is so important that I can ignore the rest of reality. And in fact, reality is an imposition on me. Institutions, rules, roles, the rules of the road, all that sort of stuff, it's an imposition on who I truly am. And in order for me to be actually free, I have to speak my truth. Now, you know, as I've said and you've said, there's no such thing as my truth, right? There's your opinion and then there's the truth. But as soon as you start speaking in terms of my truth, as soon as you start saying, well, there's how I feel about the world and how I feel about the world is the core of me, what that also does, it means that other people are aggressing on you when they disagree with you. Because obviously a shared reality means that we can disagree about things out here, but, you know, we sort of as human beings are intact. But the moment that you start to identify your truth with the truth, then anybody attacking your truth is attacking you as a human being. And I think that that's where we've gone, is this movement away from, we're having a political debate, but again, we can go out and have a drink afterward because we are not the political debate. The political debate's a different thing. To my politics are who I am, or my feelings about who I am, or my feelings about the world. That's the thing that matters more than anything else.
And what's extraordinary, I mean, I remember this, we're going to come to them later, sadly, but Meghan and Harry, when they went on Oprah Winfrey, and she started talking constantly about my truth, and Oprah was endorsing your truth and everything. I was thinking, I'm living in a sort of mad world where truth is no longer factual. It's just whatever you're feeling in any given moment. It seems such a perverse thing for a democratic society that you move away from fact-based, from science, whatever it may be, to just feelings dominating a culture. And if you defy those feelings, you are instantly branded the enemy and you must be destroyed.
Well, there's no conversation to be had, right? I can't have a conversation about your feelings. You're feeling your feelings. There's no way for me to dissuade you from.
You can't deny my feelings.
Correct. I can't deny. I can deny the facts that you bring to the table. But the problem is, once that becomes irrelevant, then we're just at an impasse. There's no more conversation to be had.
How big a problem is it that at the same time, simultaneously, I think, you've had the rise of very populist leaders like Donald Trump, Boris Johnson in the UK, and others who play pretty fast and loose with the truth? That you have people who say, well, hang on, you talk about the sanctity of truth, but you've got these political leaders, US presidents, British prime ministers, where they don't seem to care about the truth. They just bumble through with whatever suits them from day to day. How dangerous is that to the whole shebang?
I mean, I think that is dangerous, but it's dangerous in a different way. And it's also dangerous in a more consistent and, I would say, historically precedented way. I mean, the fact is that politicians have always fibbed to us. I mean, there's nothing new about politicians saying things that are not true, from LBJ to George W. Bush to Donald Trump and Barack Obama. I mean, like literally every politician.
And Joe Biden. I mean,
yeah, to President Biden. Right? You see this all the time. So the idea of a politician not telling the truth or shading the truth in particular ways, that's not what's new. I think what's new is where people are presented with data and their immediate response isn't, let me bring you some data that rebuts that data, but I don't even have to look at your data because your motivation is bad. Right? This philosophy.
How dangerous is it, though, that we've also become incredibly tribal? I think more than I can ever remember in modern history, actually. You know, when I read your Twitter feed, I think you're always prepared to call out your own side if you genuinely feel there's been some egregious wrongdoing that they've done or a terrible mistake or whatever. But the number of people prepared to do that now, on social media in particular, is minuscule. Most people park themselves into their tribe, whatever that tribe may be, and there is no moving them. There's no deviation, even if the facts change. And again, it plays into, well, if your feelings are the facts, then if you feel that fact is wrong, well, that's enough.
Right. But the tribalism that I think has cropped up is rooted in a philosophy called the motivism, which is the idea that everybody's actual viewpoints are not driven by their view of the facts. It's driven by their internal emotions. What that allows me to do, on the converse, is attribute malicious intent to people that I'm arguing with. And it means that I get to ignore all of their facts. The reason that I'm disagreeing with you is because I'm good and you're a bad person. And what that means is that people on my own side, for example, they might be upset with me for talking with people on the other side of the aisle, because why would you talk to somebody who's a nasty person, who has bad motivations? And the same thing on people on the other side talking to me. I was having a conversation one time with a very, very large left-wing podcaster. This is probably 2018. And I said, we should really do like a crossover podcast for the midterm elections. It'll do huge business. And my side will be totally fine with it. It'll be great. And he said, your side will be fine with it. My side will kill me.
Right.
And that's probably
But that's
right.
the way it's gone. And Bill Maher said to me, that comedy used to be rooted really in right-wing extremism being comedic. And that was where liberal comics like him could get their material. Now he said it's mainly to the left. It's the woke area of politics that gives him the most comedic material. And he can't believe it. As a liberal himself, he feels just really frustrated that they don't understand how ridiculous and laughable their positions on things have become.
Well, it's driving a bunch of people who consider themselves center or center-left into the arms of people who are more conservative, actually. I've made the point before that I think the future of the West may ride not on people who agree with me most of the time, conservatives, traditionalists. I think the future of the West might ride on people who consider themselves kind of traditional liberals, who may agree with some of the left's prescriptions economically, but who disagree with the way they want to get there, which is very often by silencing debate, using censorship, shutting things down. So the question is going to be, are they willing to put off utopia for a while in order to engage in the debate?
Because
the debate's more important.
I've always thought myself not really as a political ideologue, right? I think I'm pretty centrist and call out everybody, really. I see myself as a journalist, fundamentally, and don't think that being partisan helps that particular profession very much, as we've seen from those who've actually drifted down into being partisan as journalists. It doesn't work. You become an activist. But someone said the other day, are you a conservative? I said, well, I've never identified as a conservative. But the farther lunatic that the left woke go, the more the pendulum swings. And eventually we all get sucked into thinking, well, OK, actually, by comparison to this, I probably am getting a bit conservative because I think they're lunatics.
I think what's happening right now, and it's happening in a bunch of countries, is people are just craving any sense of normality.
And common sense.
And no one is providing it to them.
Right.
No one is providing it to them. They're taking a slap at the people who are responsible for the status quo as license to now do whatever they want. And so you're seeing the pendulum swinging wildly side to side, because if you're a political leader, you're trying to harness the passions of the moment to get done the thing that you really, really want to get done, when in reality, the population just wants things to kind of just stop. Just leave us alone and stop.
Right, I totally agree. And I think that's the majority of people. Right? I mean, today, Rolling Stone published an opinion piece on why cancel culture is good for democracy. And I read this piece and it was so completely deluded because, of course, cancel culture is the antithesis of a democracy. It's actually the antithesis of liberalism. You can't pretend to be liberal with what that actually was intended to mean and support cancel culture.
I think the left uses cancel culture in a very different way than most of us use cancel culture. When we talk about cancel culture, typically what we mean is you say something that they don't like on the air, and they decide to secondarily boycott your advertisers, or they go to your bosses and call for you to be fired.
Right.
And that's what we mean by cancel culture. What they mean is, well, we're allowed to disapprove of you. Well, sure, you're allowed to disapprove. Turn the channel. Right? You don't have to subscribe to Daily Wire. You don't have to watch your show. Right? But what they do with that instead is they attempt to get you kicked off the air, not by dint of lack of ratings or something, but just because they're so angry that they're going to go yell at people and bother them until you get kicked off the air. That's what cancel culture really is.
I interviewed Congressman George Santos this week, who, even by the standards of fibbing politicians, I mean, it was quite startling. I'll just play the clip where he admits to being a terrible liar. I've been a terrible liar. I mean, would you be prepared to say that?
Sure. Like I said, well, I've been a terrible liar on those subjects.
I mean, this guy's a serving member of the United States Congress. Right? He's one of the most powerful politicians in the country by default. And he just admitted to being a terrible liar, whether that meant just volume of lies or he's very bad at them, or in his case, uniquely, probably both. But what did you make of that? And should someone like him be allowed to stay in Congress?
I mean, I think that the voters are going to decide whether he gets to stay in Congress or not. I don't have a lot of standards for who gets kicked out of Congress by members of their own party because, frankly, I think that he's almost the apotheosis of what politics has reached, which is I'm going to lie as much as I can get away with it. And then the minute I can't get away with it, I'll just be like, well, I'm sorry I lied. I mean, that's really sad.
As a high-profile Jewish man, I want to play you the clip where he talks about being Jew-ish, where he separates the two parts of the word. Just have a look at this.
I'd always say I was raised Catholic, but I come from a Jewish family, so that makes me Jew-ish. I said it to a room with 1,000 people in November. People were hysterically laughing. It was funny to them. They loved it.
Now, the people have already said they were at that event and they weren't laughing with him. There's no sign of any evidence he has any Jewish heritage. He claimed his grandparents fled the Holocaust. There seems to be no evidence for that. His parents are both from Brazil. And this idea that somehow he can be Jew-ish, i.e. not actually Jewish, just ish.
Well, I mean, honestly, what he should have said is, on the inside, I feel Jewish. Right? I feel so Jewish on the inside. So I'm Jewish. I mean, what are you going to do? Challenge my feelings?
But he has
Jewish?
repeatedly said he's Jewish.
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't joking. We've seen the clip, so he said it repeatedly.
Yeah. No. Again, I sort of see him as he's almost the apex predator of politicians at this point. He's reached the logical endpoint of where our politics is going. And it is the job of people like you or me to call it out when he says things that are not true. But I think that we have reached a sort of post-truth era, not in that people don't pay attention to the truth, but I'm not even sure how many people care about the truth. Now, I do think that can be exaggerated. I do think the bulk of the population really does care very much about the truth, and that's why I think that there's going to be a tidal wave of resentment that is about to crash across a bunch of society.
How important is the truth to you? Because you've got this huge following now, massive podcast, tens of millions of people watching your stuff on social media and so on. How important is truth to you now, that everything comes out of your mouth or that you write is fact?
I mean, it's the most important thing to me because I have to sleep at night. I mean, it's something that I try to think about as much as humanly possible is never lie to your audience. Never say to your audience a thing that you know to be not true, and try to follow the best data possible. And that does mean that you're very often having to be more nuanced than sort of the politics of the situation may allow. Because the easiest position in politics is always to take the hardest right or the hardest left position, the sort of most pure, most easily understood position, or to just play the easiest game of all, which is, again, my opponent is a bad guy. My opponent is a person who hates your guts.
When we had our dust up at CNN about gun control, for example, I'm not going to go over all that again, but had I been very different with you, if I'd been very, respectful and said, look, I'm a British guy, these aren't my laws, I'm just as horrified as you are by these massacres, and didn't talk about gun control, which I think has always been a terribly inflammatory phrase for many Americans. They don't want to be controlled. And they certainly don't want to hear a British accent telling them about how they should be more controlled. But if I'd phrased it as about gun safety, if that had always been the debate in America, how do you make it safer in a country that has 400 million firearms in circulation? Would that have been a more constructive debate, do you think?
I think it would have been a more informative debate. And the reason being, I think that clarity is very much opposed sometimes by passion. And we all get passionate about these issues. I'm not going to pretend I'm not passionate on my show, or I'm completely dispassionate in all circumstances. I'm obviously not. But I think that would have allowed for the kind of discussion where we could have looked at data from various areas of the world. Where have regulations been effective? Where have they not been effective? What are, as I said on the show, actually, at the time, I believe, what are the risks and rewards of particular policies? That's where the good discussion area, I think, gets done.
Just final point on the gun thing, but I'm aware many viewers who watch this in America own guns and support
I own guns,
the Second Amendment rights and so on. Where do you see the line going? As you have all these massacres and as gun ownership increases, there's more guns in circulation. What do you do about that? I mean, as a country as big and powerful as America, what more can be done to just make it safer?
I mean, again, the measures that I've always suggested are measures that tend more toward the gun owner than toward the weapon itself, meaning that we obviously need better screening procedures for people who have a history of severe mental illness. We have red flag laws on the books, but they're not enacted. I mean, people don't actually practically follow the red flag laws, which is why I'm kind of skeptical of the idea that if we pass some more text from the legislature, that's magically going to translate into better action. What we need is more alacrity from the cops. I mean, how many of these mass shootings have we seen where there are 1,000 red flags and the cops go to the house and then they're told, well, no, we're not going to do anything. We're going to leave you back out there. It's almost in every circumstance. So we actually do need law enforcement to have more ability and will to carry out, for example, when they know somebody is severely mentally disturbed or somebody is shooting a gun at their mother, which we've had a case like that. That would be a time where you actually remove the person's guns and keep track of them, make sure they can't actually get guns. Right? I mean,
see, if I had my way again, when I was doing that debating, I would have had this kind of conversation. I can look back at those and realise I was letting my own emotions override.
We all have these. I mean,
yeah, but it's interesting, isn't it? I do think an important part of how we get to a better place as society now, away from this tribalism, away from all this stuff, is you've got to be prepared to have this kind of conversation, which doesn't end up with me just looking at you and shouting, well, you're a complete idiot because you don't agree with me, right? It's more complicated. It's more nuanced. Life is more nuanced than that.
I like to think so. And I think that, again, those conversations can be really, really productive. I try to make a habit. I have my regular daily show, but I also have a show called The Sunday Special that you've been on, in which I bring on a bunch of people who disagree, from Bill Maher to Anna Kasparian. And we actually try to talk through these issues. And
last time I came on, I found it a very surprisingly pleasant experience.
Yeah, exactly.